Mike Syfritt, and we're back here at Techshop with the horror show today, and we're going to teach you how to make a movie prop for horror movies. I've already picked out something today. First thing that you want to do when you're trying to figure out what you're going to make is research. So we found this hacksaw, and we're going to be printing that off and setting it up to make a movie prop out of it. So this is what we've decided to use today. A Victorian, basically a regular hacksaw. We're going to bloody it up, make it look very horrifying. Okay, so once we've gotten our image, we're going to bring it into some kind of program that is going to allow us to set up a file to laser cut some of the parts on this, and also print some of the parts that we will then trace out and hand cut on a jigsaw. So today we're using Illustrator. That's what I'm most familiar with, so I'm going to go ahead and trace this out. So I just traced out the design, put it in the computer. We will go and take this part here, and we're going to cut that out of a craft foam, EVA foam, so it's safe for kiddies. I'll print that part out on a piece of paper, and we'll trace that out on some wood. Okay, so we're on to the next phase, and so we're back in Illustrator, only we're over here at the lasers. This is a universal laser system. It uses a CO2 laser system. We're going to cut the main saw blade out of EVA foam or craft foam that you can get at Michael's, places like that. This particular material is a 5mm thickness material. All right, so we should be ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and send this over to the laser, and here we go. So there you go, that's the saw. Now we're just going to shave it down a little bit and give it some color. This is the design that we're now going to find a piece of wood that fits, and then we'll cut this out. So we'll go with plywood, and what I'll actually do is I'll cut out 2 of these and glue them together. So you may not have a laser at your disposal. The next best thing would be scissors and obviously paper. Okay, to save time, we actually laser cut the part so that we can trace it out. So we're going to go ahead and set this up on this piece of wood right here and trace out 2 versions, because we're going to actually glue these 2 pieces together. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to make this pointy so it actually looks like a blade. EVA foam is a very tight, condensed, closed cell foam and works very well with sanding, believe it or not. So that's what we're going to do right now. So once we've cleaned off all the bristles, you can see it's got a nice sharp edge. Looks like a blade now. So the next phase of this is we need to make it a little bit sturdier, because right now it's very flimsy. But this is a miter box saw, and so it has these little pieces that go onto the end of it. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to use our same glue that we've used in the past, the contact cement, and we're going to glue these pieces on. Before we do that though, we don't want to get glue everywhere, so we're going to take a ballpoint pen, and we're just going to trace out where this line is on here so I don't get glue outside of that line. So we'll flip this over and do the same thing on this side. Alright, so you can see the little line on that. That will be my starting point. And then we'll go ahead and slap some contact cement on these pieces here. You just want an even flow. You don't want to put too much on, or it'll take a really long time to dry. So if you do a nice thin coat, by the time you're done with one side of it, the other side's dry. Those pieces are ready. We're also going to hand cut out this little piece here. Didn't realize when I laser cut it earlier that you need a piece for the end of this. So we're going to go ahead and slather this one up too. So I'm putting big thick coats on it, but I'm also thinning out by brushing it. That's going to be ready, and now this one's probably pretty close to ready, so give that a minute or so to dry, and we'll be ready to go. So now we're going to put this piece on here. So we'll line up this little corner, and we'll line up these edges here. Alright, so I'm going to throw this little guy on here, added that little piece, and then I'm going to throw this guy on. And now we have stability. It'll still look like an oversized, hacksaw when we get done with it. The next thing that we'll do with this piece is we will go through and layer it with Plastidip, which would be this material here. This is great for a sealer. What this actually is a sprayable rubber. We use this because it holds tight to this closed cell foam and then causes it to become a rubbery substance, which also seals it for you to be able to paint it with acrylic paints and things like that. Hey guys, okay, so we're back. As you can see, I have a few parts that actually make it kind of look like a saw. What we've done with this is this has now been sprayed with Plastidip, so it's nice and rubbery, and we'll be able to do a quick rub and buff on it. As you saw in the last part of it, we were able to glue this all together and get it all shaped. We were starting to cut this out, but we had a situation with the saw blade running down, so we had to replace the saw blade, and I've been able to put the two pieces together. So now it's glued, and the next phase for this will be to sand it down and get its proper shaping and everything for it. What we'll do right now, though, is we'll show you how to do this rub and buff. It's this material. It's a wax-based metallic paint. So we'll just put a little bit of that here on this cloth and rub it around. And we're going to try to get this really silvery but somewhat tarnished. And we'll probably use some different colors later on to give it a rust color, things like that. As long as you stick with the grain, you can get it kind of a brushed metal look as you go through this. I'm going to go with that today. Try to get this thing looking like a brushed metal. Make sure we get our teeth here. Okay, that part looks like it's pretty good. So now we're going to go over to Rotary Sander. So it's basically a cylinder that moves up and down. We can change the bits to give it wider pieces or thinner pieces. I'm going to go through and just reshape all of this. We're going to start with a disc sander. I'm going to get just the general shape here as much as I can with this. Right now we're going to reshape this handle because it's big and blocky right now and needs a little bit of a rounded edge to fit better in your hand. I can't do that with a big heavy machine, so I'm going to use a Dremel tool for that. Feels pretty good now. So now we're going to do a little bit of assembly and then we'll be going back to paint here. Okay, so now we're just going to give this a light stain. It's going to be a dark stain, but set that aside. And then something I found out through a happy accident was adding this stain over the top of this silver adds a really cool effect. Added kind of a yellowish brass effect to it. It's going to look really good once we add blood to it. So now it looks more like a very old antique rusted blade. Okay, so if you remember what it looked like in the picture, there's some bolts and stuff that are basically holding this part to this part. So we're going to basically just modify that and make it look like it's there. So I've got these little round discs that I cut out of the same foam. I'm just going to trace these out so I know where to put the glue down. And these are a little bit taller than what they should be, so I'm going to glue them down and then I'm going to sand them off a little bit so that they're not so predominant. And then we'll go ahead and paint those with some acrylic paint. So we're going to use the same kind of glue that we did before. This stuff here. This is the contact cement that we've used in previous work demonstrations. Okay, and then as soon as I get all this together, I'll do the other side as well. We've already put it on this side, but basically I added some of the contact cement on both the wood piece and these little dowels, and so we're going to glue those on. I had to draw a little circle around it to make sure I had the right place, and also for alignment purposes, so it looks like it goes through the product. So we're going to go ahead and glue those on real quick. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and sand these down on the disc sander so that we can get them at a smaller density. Okay, so the next process is we want to make these look like they're actually bolts. So I'm going to go ahead and Dremel out a little hex in there to make it look like it's a Phillips head. Now we're going to paint these pieces. We're going to use a glossy acrylic craft paint. Just put a little bit on here. This stuff tends to soak this stuff up pretty well, so I'm not being very sparing with it. Okay, while we're waiting for that to dry, I'm going to go ahead and put the blood onto this. We're going to start with a base coat, which will look like smeared blood. I'm using the same acrylic material for that, so we're actually going to use this stuff here. I'm just going to dip this in with the black that I already had so we can get kind of a blood red color. Okay, that looks like good dried blood right there, so we'll go ahead and use that. And I'm actually going to be putting it onto here and smearing it on. So typically, if you're sawing somebody in half, you're going to get a lot of it right here. So we just did a little bit of red blood right there. Give it kind of a nice bloody, gory look. This killer didn't have time to clean, so he left all the blood and guts on this thing when he was caught. So that's the next phase, is we're going to use this material here. This is actually a product from Smooth On. This is the ultimate blood kit. This can be used for a number of different effects and things like that, using the standard blood, and then we're also going to add a thickener to it so that we can get kind of a crusty, you know, like chunks of skin and flesh and things like that. And then there's also a thinner in here that we'll probably, I don't know if we'll need to use that at all. I think with this one we want to definitely do a fresh blood look, so we'll probably just use the standard here. Coagulated blood, so we're going to use 5 drops of that Hacksaw. So I'm going to just take this and just kind of spackle it on here. We'll get some chunks on here. This stuff is water soluble and washes out of most clothes. Whites are probably no good. So I will start with just the standard look. Okay, so now we're going to splatter some blood on it. So I'm actually thinning out the red blood. Alright, I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so we're going to do that rub and buff technique again, just on these little pieces here. So this time I'm using what's called gold leaf. Gives it kind of a antique brass look. And that's pretty much it with that. We need to glue these two pieces together. There. Alright, so we'll give that a second to dry here. Alright, this is the final tell-all. We're going to get this thing in here. And there you have it. Nice bloody hacksaw. That's flexible, won't hurt anybody, and that's it. That's how you make yourself a nice bloody hacksaw. Works great on screen and great for props. Thanks for watching. Remember, stay scared.